So, as we were discussing in the last slide, so we are just going to brush up on some basic phenomena, and then we'll be going in depth for the solar energy. So, first thing we are going to see is semiconductor physics. As we know, the solids are divided into three parts, that is conductors, semiconductors and insulators, based upon the electrical conductivity of the material. So when we come to the conductors, there are more number of free electrons in the conduction band, which can allow us for the conduction of electricity. So that is why that type of elements are called as conductors. Here, if we just look at this diagram, here the valence band and the conduction band just overlap each other, and there is no band gap between the valence band and the conduction band. Valence band is the last or highest most band in which the electrons are present, and conduction band is where the conduction happens, where the conduction of electrons happens, that is where the electricity will be conducted. So those two band, in those between those two bands, here there is no electric band gap, okay, in case of conductors. Now coming to the semiconductors, there is a slight gap between the valence band and conduction band. Here these electrons, what can happen in the semiconductors means these semiconductors can act as conductors as well as insulators based upon the specific conditions. For example, if we give the semiconductor a little push or a little extra energy, that means these electrons which are there in the valence band can jump into the conduction band and conduct the electricity. That's why these are called as semiconductors. They can be either conductors or insulators based upon the nature and conditions that are present in that particular time. Okay, so the third category is insulators. So here we have a very wide band gap between the valence band and conduction band. These electrons, even if we give some push to these electrons, they cannot jump from the valence band to the conduction band because of the wide band gap between these two bands. This is why there is no electrical conductivity in case of an insulator. Under any conditions, under whatever the condition may be, how much ever energy we are giving from outside or whatever the condition may be, the insulators do not conduct electricity. So based upon this particular science, what we are going to understand is what are the different types which we can use in order to get the electrical conductivity. Now, coming to the semiconductors in particular, we have two types of semiconductors. First one is called as an intrinsic semiconductor. The second one is called as an extrinsic semiconductor. The intrinsic semiconductor is nothing but the pure form of semiconductors. That is, example for this semiconductors is germanium and silicon. Here, the number of electrons and the number of holes are equal. Hole is nothing but an absence of electron. You know that, right? Electron is a negative charged element. An electron is a negative charged particle, and the absence of a negative charged particle is regarded as a positive charge, that is nothing but the hole. Okay, so now there are as we were saying, intrinsic semiconductors are nothing but the pure form of the semiconductors, where examples for this intrinsic form of semiconductors is germanium and silicon in its pure form. Now coming to the extrinsic semiconductor, in extrinsic semiconductor we'll have an intrinsic semiconductor plus some or the other type of material is being added to the intrinsic semiconductor. This material which we are adding to the intrinsic semiconductor is called as a doping material. Based upon this doping material and the nature of the doping material, we have two types of extrinsic semiconductors. They are N-type and P-type semiconductors. Why are we getting these names N-type and P-type, and how are these classified means based upon the doping material which we are giving to the intrinsic semiconductor. For example, if we are giving a pentavalent impurity, pentavalent means the valence of this impurity, the last band of this impurity will contain 5 electrons. Pentavalent. Penta means 5, valent means valence electrons. So pentavalent impurity has 5 electrons in its valence band. In these 5 electrons, when we come to the germanium and silicon, these are quadrivalent elements. That means we will have 4 electrons in the valence band. So in order to bond with these 4 electrons, we need 4 electrons at minimum. So when we come to the pentavalent impurities, we have 5 electrons in the valence band. That means we are having an extra electron in case of a pentavalent impurity that is being added to the intrinsic semiconductor. So here whatever the donor we are having, the impurity of the donor is a negative type. That is why it is called as negative n-type semiconductor. Negative type in the sense we are getting an extra negative particle, that is electron. So we are getting an extra electron when we are adding the n-type, when we are adding the pentavalent impurity to the intrinsic semiconductor. Thus the semiconductor thus formed is called as an n-type semiconductor. Now coming to the p-type semiconductor, here the impurities which we are going to add are a trivalent impurities. That means they have 3 valence electrons in the valence band. So how is this useful for us means, when there is 3 electrons present in the outermost band and that is being added to the intrinsic semiconductor, what happens is, because of the absence of an extra electron, a hole is formed. So that hole is used as our charge carrying conductor in case of an p-type semiconductor. The examples for the pentavalent impurities are, so here what are the main elements which are carrying the charge in case of p-type means, holes are the main elements that are carrying particles that are carrying the charge in case of a p-type material. Thus these extrinsic semiconductors with a trivalent impurity are called as p-type semiconductors. Now this is just in this slide just shows us how the impurities are being added to an intrinsic semiconductor and what is an n-type and p-type semiconductor. Now the next concept which we are going to see is photoelectric effect. As we have seen in case of a semiconductor, if we want to make these valence band electrons to go into conduction band, we need to give a push or energy to the valence electrons. How are we going to give this push or energy means, there are different types in which we can, different various mechanisms in which we can provide this extra energy. One of the forms is photons, that is light. If we just give light to the semiconductor, those photons go and hit the electrons in the orbits and move them to a higher orbit. Thus the valence electrons can be moved to a conduction band and the electricity can be flown through that particular material. This effect is called as a photoelectric effect. Here if you just see the animation, a photon is hitting the electron and the electron is moving away from the effect of the nucleus. Now, producing electricity through solar energy. Solar energy can be used to generate electricity in 2 ways. What are the 2 ways means? Photovoltaic solar energy, using solar energy from the direct generation of electricity using photovoltaic phenomena. And the second one is thermal solar energy, using solar energy for heating fluids which can be used as a heat source to run the turbines to generate electricity. So the first one is photovoltaic phenomena is nothing but the photoelectric effect and everything where the solar energy where the solar energy is directly used to generate the electricity. Okay, here the thermal solar energy is nothing but heating the fluids. It is like similar to our thermal station or nuclear station where the steam is generated and that steam will be running the turbine as well, and the turbine will be in turn running the generator. Same concept is being used here. Here the heat source which we are taking is nothing but the sun. Now, solar energy collectors. There are different types in which the solar energy can be collected. There are different devices through which the solar energy can be collected. These are the following which we are going to see are some of the ways in which the solar energy can be collected. The first one is solar thermal collectors heating liquid. Okay, these are called as the flat plate collectors. Flat plate collectors or the general type of collectors which we see even in our daily lives. These are nothing but the solar water heaters which many of us might be having in our houses and everything. So here, what happens is there will be some pipes arranged, and there will be an insulation, and there will be some metal frame, or in where there will be a metal frame to attract the heat, and there will be a glass to trap the heat, and there will be a copper coated collecting tube. Here whatever the tubes which we are using are copper coated in order to make maximum amount of heat to be trapped in the pipes. We are using copper coating, and all these are the in the right side of your slide you can see different parts of the flat plate collector system. Now same, it is a simple system. What we are going to do is we are going to pump water into these pipes, and because of the solar energy, because of the solar energy, when the sun is shined, the solar energy will be trapped in this particular device, and the water is getting heated, and that heated water will be given back to us. Again, similar type of collection here also, evacuated tube collectors. Here what is going to happen is we will be having an evacuated tube which is shown in the right side of your diagram. You can just see sunlight absorbed as heat by dark inner surface of the evacuated tube. Okay, glass evacuated tube locks in heat. So here, instead of having a total panel which can block the heat, here we are having a tube which is blocking the heat. Okay, which is locking the heat. Same thing we have, water is going to be cold vapor liquefies and returns to the bottom of the heat pipe to repeat cycle, where hot vapor rises to the top of the heat pipe. So these are the different mechanisms in which we are going to collect. Next, solar thermal collectors heating air. As we have ACs, we know what is AC, right? AC gives us a cold air. In some areas where the temperature is very low, we need a air heater. So in that cases, what we are going to do is we are going to use a solar thermal collector air heaters. So here instead of giving cold air as in case of our normal conventional ACs, this air heater will be giving hot airs, and this is the mechanism which is being this is the different parts in that air heater. Solar thermal collectors generating electricity. Now till now what we have seen in this above, this one is, first one is heating liquids like water and all those things are being heated in the first two, flat plate collectors and evacuated tube collectors, and again in this air is being heated, that is solar thermal collectors heating air. And again now the next one is generating electricity. Now we are trying to understand how the electricity is being generated in case of this one. Okay, in case of solar thermal collectors. Now there are there are three different types in which we can collect the solar thermal energy. The first one is the parabolic trough, the second one is the parabolic dish, the third one is the power tunnel. Now if you just look at this particular slide, you can see that the parabolic trough is nothing but a parabolic shape, right? We have a reflector panel which is in a parabolic shape, and when we have a parabola, we know that there will be a focal point. The reflector panel will reflect all the lines. Here if you can just see in this particular diagram in the bottom part of your slide, you can see that the reflector panel is reflecting all the solar radiations to one point which is called as the focal point. In that focal point we will be having piping. Okay, if you just see the diagram just above that particular diagram, here you can see an absorber tube that is being fitted through this parabolic trough, which is nothing but the which is nothing but where the water pipe is being installed. Okay, that is the parabolic trough. Next, parabolic dish. Same mechanism here. Instead of using different parabolic panels, we are having a big parabolic dish which reflects to a receiver, which reflects all the solar energy to a particular point, which is called as a receiver or engine in this particular case, parabolic dish. Next, power tower. Here what we are going to have is, as in case of a hydroelectric plant, will be having a large area in which the solar panels will be arranged in such a way that they all reflect the solar energy to a receiver tower. Okay, here if we just see in this diagram, we have a receiver tower. There all this solar energy will be concentrated to that receiver tower. That receiver tower, what it acts as means, it acts as a boiler. For in the case of our thermal power station or nuclear power station, in the place of a boiler or in the place of a nuclear reactor in that particular station, this receiver acts like that. There it receives the heat energy and tries to convert it into steam energy. Again, this steam energy will be again used for the running of the turbine and generator, and the electricity is being produced. This is like, this solar power tower is the concept which is running right now, which is the which is used to produce maximum amount of electricity. High amounts of electricity can be produced using solar power tower. Now here, in these are simple examples which we are seeing here in this diagram. If you see on the left, this is nothing but the solar cooker. This is nothing but the solar cooker. Okay, you have all the reflecting panels and the heat will be reflected to the center of that arrangement, and there the dish has been placed so that the dish can be cooked. In the same manner, if you see on your right, here we have a parabolic shaped solar cooker, in which, if you see in this diagram, you can see clearly what the focus point means. Here if you see the where the dish is being placed, in that place, in case of this parabolic trough, the absorber tube will be placed. Same place the absorber tube will be placed in case of a parabolic trough. This is a solar cooker, where this is a small type of solar cooker, a very small solar cooker, where there is a parabolic shaped reflector, which is reflecting the heat to a focal point. Now, there are some more advanced solar collectors. These are the different examples of the solar collectors. First one is holographic solar collector. Okay, this is based upon the holographic principle. Okay, next, the second one is solar balloon. As we know, we have hot air balloons which are being used for recreational purposes in general. Here we can use, in place of a hot air balloon, we can use a solar balloon. Instead of using the hot air, we can use the solar directly. Next, the next one is solar ball. This is also similar to nothing but different different types of collecting mechanisms. As I've said, in case of in the introduction of this solar technologies and everything, I've said that we used to go to our roof and we used to use a magnifying glass to concentrate the solar energy and light up a paper or something, right? In the same manner, here the same mechanism is being used. Here the solar ball itself acts as a magnifying glass, a big magnifying glass. The advantage of this magnifying glass or the solar ball is, this can be rotated according to the direction of the sun. If the sun is moving in certain particular direction, this can be rotated in order to get the maximum amount of solar energy. Okay, that is the advantage of this solar ball. Here the same mechanism, again we are concentrating the solar energy to a particular point at which the photoelectric effect or heat will be produced, and again the same thing that will be converted into electricity, and this can be used to charge your batteries and everything. The next the next mechanism is solar window. This is one of the most popular things which we are seeing right now in the world, solar windows. What we are going to do is, if we just look at the windows in our houses, we'll have some glass panels which will be fitted, right? Which are being fitted. So instead of using a normal glass, what we are going to use is we are going to use this solar window. Directly we are going to place this window. As you can see, that is a transparent piece of glass. So that is a transparent photo cell. So it can allow the light to come into our homes, as well as block the light and get the heat energy and everything from the light. So these are the one of the most popular things which we are seeing nowadays. So these are the different phenomena using which we are converting the solar energy into electrical energy, or in case of flat plate collector or evacuated tube collectors, we are converting it into a heat energy. These are the things what we have seen till now, and in the next class what we are going to see is we are going to see what is the solar photovoltaic side of this solar energy, how this photovoltaic phenomena is there, and what are the different concepts which we need to understand the solar photovoltaics, and how to design a solar panel, what are the different parts and what are the different techniques involved in order to get the maximum amount of power from the solar energy, and all those things. Okay, that's the end of the today's class.